Hello and welcome back to episode 29 of the Boxing Social podcast in association with Betfred, with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. As always, before we get started, just like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe. Turn those notifications on for more boxing content. Now we've got rid of all of that. Barry, great week. Why are you smiling? Always very, very interesting start. I look over to him, I never know what to expect. And you've got that nice cheeky chappy grin on. How are you?
You make me laugh. I don't know. I don't know if you're doing it on purpose or whether I'm a little bit punch drunk or whether you're just...
Yeah, mix of both.
Yeah, a little bit. But I think it's a little mix of both. You can't say that. I can say it. I'm all right, mate. I'm good, actually, yeah. I'm very good. I had a good weekend. It's been a busy weekend of boxing again.
It has been a very busy weekend of boxing. Friday, Saturday UK, Saturday night, obviously well, Saturday late night in America, which obviously we'll start with first, Canelo versus Canelo-Plant. We sat here a couple of weeks ago and we discussed... look at that Boxing Social branded mug. Look at him.
It's great, isn't it? This is what I'm taking home tonight. I'm definitely taking this home.
You say that every time you come here that you're going to take one.
I don't like to steal.
Okay. Well, you have permission. So
pillage is... can we call it something different? I like the pillage.
You like to come and pillage the Boxing Social set?
Yes.
Okay, fine. You're welcome to it. Just don't take the Boxing Social podcast.
I'm taking one of your minions as well.
You're fine. You can take them. That's absolutely fine. Yeah. But anyway, Canelo versus Canelo-Plant. We sat here a couple of weeks ago. We went through it, and I think it's fair to say we didn't really give Canelo-Plant too much of a chance on the night.
No. Well, the reason because you don't know until you know. With someone like that, he hasn't been nowhere near that level. So you have a look at what he's done at his level, which even though he's looked good and he's done okay, he's never looked supersonic or outstanding ever. I don't feel, even though he's good, you can clearly see he's good. So that step up to Canelo's level always felt like if he was going to win or even look good, Canelo had to underperform. And yeah, so, but I thought he did all right. I thought he looked well, good, Plant. I do. I think he was like negative, but I think tactically he wasn't too far out. I don't think he was ever going to beat Canelo. That's the truth of it. Certainly in Las Vegas, but I think what he was trying to do was the right thing.
Before we kind of discuss the intricacies of the fight and go through it sort of round by round, how did you have the fight at the time of the stoppage? Because that's been the cause of much consternation online. Yeah,
I think I had Plant 1 up. Yeah, but I could see you could have in Canelo 4 up. It was, I think, those early rounds when nothing was happening. Is did you go with the aggression of Canelo? But I thought he was missing a lot, or the negative stuff. The thing is, Canelo's punches are far more effective than anything I Plant through most of the time. Not always, most of the time. But I think a lot of things were hitting where Plant was having that shoulder up. I got to put my Boxing Social cup down. Where Plant was having that left shoulder turned into the target, and then so Canelo was hitting the forearm all the time because he was leaning on the back foot, using that height to keep the chin away, so Canelo couldn't get to him until he got to him, and of course in the end. But so I think some of his punches, though he's being aggressive, weren't really hitting the target clean enough to warrant being a scoring shot. And just because he's hitting the arm, that's still a block shot. It might be hurting you or whatever, but that's a block shot. And yeah, but so it was close. I didn't like. I read some Plant was gonna get robbed, and then people saying can't believe anyone had Plant ahead because he was like Richie would have got a lot of stick because I think he had it level maybe, but I can't argue with that.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of it kind of the old adage of what you like, really, I guess. I feel like when I watched it live, I had it even at the time of the stoppage. But it was kind of like, even though at the time I had it even, I actually had Canelo, so a couple of the rounds that I gave to Plant. Initially, I gave to Canelo on a rewatch. I had Canelo 7 rounds to 3 as opposed to 5 each at the time of the stoppage and the second time I watched it. But it felt as though the early rounds, you make a good point there about Canelo-Plant kind of standing tall and utilising his height and being able to kind of really block shots but still take the shots on the arms, and Canelo was doing a lot of punching to sort of the hip area to slow down the movement.
Kidneys.
Yeah, he was that digging that. It was, it's kind of like, how Gennady Golovkin hit Marco Antonio Parabellum with that left hook, kind of that chop down. And we spoke a couple of weeks ago about how Canelo has sort of taken things from fighters in the past. The way that he was throwing the right, it was sort of like a...
It was sort of wasn't it? Yeah.
Down to the kidney and
Golovkin
the hip area.
Lifts the elbow up, and like that's a very Eastern European thing to do. Then or Soviet, that's a Soviet thing to do, because that's what he would have been originally, wouldn't he? And they lift the elbow up and they punch down to it. They really get that thing. So that's a technique you have to learn because you've got to use, it's all using the same muscles, but using them in a different way. So you just can't do that. You have to practice that. And obviously Canelo was doing with the right hand to the body, so he didn't have to lift it too high, but he still get the angle or the torque certainly to get that turn, to hit the body shot. And it was effective because I don't know, did it slow Plant down? I think the footwork of Canelo slows you down. That's what he was doing, like he always does. Canelo boxes is pretty much the same now. He might do little things differently, but he just makes you work really hard all the time in the early rounds, and so he doesn't do nothing massively impressive until he does it, and then and then he gets you. Yeah.
It sort of reminded me, and that's where I was going with it before I kind of veered off. It reminded me a little bit of the Kovalev fight, and I know it's seen everybody's been kind of speaking about that in the aftermath. But similarly to the Kovalev fight, I actually had Kovalev, I think, a round up, or it was a very close fight when the stoppage came. There was still that air of inevitability. It kind of felt like, even though at the time when I watched it live, I had it 5 each, I kind of always felt like Canelo was going to get to him eventually. And that's kind of what happened. As you said there, Plant was defending really well, using his height and being awkward and offering a small target on the ropes until he didn't.
I didn't see it that way. I mean, there was always a case that a feeling that he's going to slow down now. He has to, and it wasn't a frantic pace, by the way, but he makes sure he puts you under constant pressure. So Plant's working much harder than Canelo is, of course. But I never had the feeling that he's going to crumble here. I never had that feeling, but I had a feeling that Canelo's going to start to take over. But it wasn't a dramatic takeover either, to be honest, I don't think.
In the 10th round, he had the 10th round where you sort of saw him get frustrated. I think a couple of rounds previously, you had Eddie Reynoso. It was what Canelo said after the fight. Eddie Reynoso was just telling him, look, stick to the game plan. But in the 10th round, we saw Canelo really inject some pace into the fight, and he had his best round of the fight. Well, I thought he had a very good 6th round, Canelo Alvarez, when he was dropping his hands and moving forward. And it kind of looked to me as though that was when the fight was going to start to turn and we were going to start to see Canelo take control in the second half. But then Plant actually had a decent 7th round and came back and kind of, staved off a little bit of that momentum that Canelo had gathered. But the 10th round was a good round for Canelo. And I agree with you in a sense that I didn't necessarily feel like Plant was going to crumble, but it kind of still felt like something was going to happen. I think Canelo has sort of got to that point in his career now where you expect it over the 12-round period. You expect him to do something, and that's what happened.
I think he's wary of the size, and I think the size. I think for the first time in a while, it was evident Saturday night that he's not a natural super middleweight. I think even though he's beaten him, and he's a unified champion, and he's a fantastic athlete. It seemed I still felt that. He's not stepping on the gas early because he knows that they're massively strong. Even if he can go with them, which he can, even if he can take their shots, which he can, he knows that they're naturally bigger than him. So he likes to wear you down by making you work harder than you want to, and he takes longer to do it. I think if this was like light middle, he would have gone. Theoretically, he would have gone to Plant after 7 rounds, like I'd be really fast and put it on him. It would have made him work hard for 5 maybe, and gone hard at 6, but kept it on him. Because every now and again, he had that little bit of injection of pace with his feet, and he did the little side steps, and and he rolled forward. But he didn't have that. I don't think he had that massively intimidating factor that he's had in previous fights, where just his presence makes you scared. I don't think he had that against Plant. And that maybe to do. He was beating Plant and making Plant always fight on the back foot as such. But that's how Plant fights anyway, to be honest. I think Plant showed a way to possibly beat him, but you need to throw more punches.
Yeah.
But when you throw more punches with Canelo, that gives him an opportunity to throw back. And with his power and accuracy and ability to close the gap, judgment of distance, if you will, you don't punch with him. I mean, unless you're a massive puncher yourself. But even Golovkin found punching with Canelo doesn't always work in your favour. So, you have to. I think you have to sort of not steal a win, but be economically and correct with your shots. And I think Plant was. There wasn't enough on him.
He was kind of going back to the Kovalev fight. One of the significant differences was Kovalev was a lot more active, was a lot busier in the fight than Caleb-Plant was. Do you think that's why we saw Caleb-Plant potentially go those 11 rounds? Was it because of, I don't want to say a lack of ambition, because obviously he was in there trying to win the fight, but he wasn't as active as he potentially could have been, which is why I feel that the fight kind of went the 11 rounds
well,
potentially.
he tried to box. I wouldn't say Mayweather, but Mayweather-ish with the the shoulder turn, leaning on the back foot, and making it hard for Canelo to hit the target clean. That means Canelo had to throw from too far out than he usually does. And when he tried to slide into the distance, then Plant used the jab quite well, enough to be fair, and he's got fast feet, so he used it better than I thought he would. But then it was all a bit too negative, and that's why probably he wasn't getting some of the rounds with a couple of the scorecards were really wide for Canelo, and I didn't really see it that way. But you can understand that and the fact that I was saying that on Saturday nights with the people I was with, that just where they're boxing, and even though he's picking up the points and I might give him the round, I can see why he might not get it because there's not enough purchase in the punches, and they always go for the guy who's trying to make the fight.
Yeah, I felt like it was. I felt like I was a little bit generous to Plant watching it live. Having watched it back, I think, as you mentioned, the effective shots were coming from Canelo.
You can't watch it back though.
Well, yeah, no.
I mean, you don't choose scores. The score you see.
Yeah, the score live that I had at the time was 5 each. But when watching it back, it did seem like I was being a little bit. The rounds that I was given to Plant, I don't think there was really any or many clear rounds that he won at all.
There is a possible like a Mayweather syndrome where if he doesn't totally dominate the round.
Yeah, somebody had said
you've
that.
You've done okay with the round.
Yeah,
you've gone, ooh, he's lost that round.
Yeah.
Like Madonna Mayweather, where he didn't win as many rounds as people think. Some people thought it was close, like the first fight and the second fight, but they weren't. Mayweather won them both, clear enough. But he just had a couple of hard rounds, and Madonna did very well, better than he should have. And that might always be the case with Canelo now. When you expect him to blast through people or not get hit with a shot, and he's getting caught or frustrated, like I think he got.
Yeah, so I think it was more the frustration. Yeah. I can't really remember that many clean shots Plant landed. Well, not clean, really throughout the shot.
They were clean shots.
Clean, effective shots.
But they were clean and effective because they're scoring punches. So that's an effect. That's effective in itself. There was no shots that made Canelo take a step back. There was no shot that worried Canelo at all. But then there's probably never going to be. And I tend to think that if you're not a massive puncher and you're up against Canelo, almost why try and waste that energy and try and hurt him? Because if Golovkin can't hurt him with a clean shot, if Kovalev can't really hurt him, who's naturally bigger than whatever, maybe by himself, past his sell-by date, but he's still a big puncher at a bigger weight, then if you're not a big puncher, you're not really going to hurt him. So why bother? But then when you're like, who better than to ask about being a fighter who's always moving is me, who doesn't have no power. I'm your man. But you have to throw more punches than the other guy. You have to. So if he throws one, you've got to throw two. However clever and tricky you are, and you have to be busier than him because his punches will have more effect because he's having that full momentum. He might be a bigger puncher. So you have to negate his one big shot with three of your own. And punches in bunches, flurries, blasts of combinations, they stick out in the judge's mind. I learned that from watching Sugar Ray Leonard. He could do everything. He had everything in he could punch and everything. But he would do, certainly against Hagler, he won the fight in my eyes. People will argue with that, but they don't know what they're talking about.
I don't think he won a fight.
But he stole the fight. But he still won it. But he stole it off Hagler because those bursts of combinations, and that's what you have to do with Canelo. I think I said this the other night, didn't I? But I still can't see where it works. But Plant did better than what I thought he would do. But it was a pretty good finish.
It was a pretty good finish. And just to kind of further your point there, and you mentioned it briefly at the start of this as well, it's one thing kind of saying, okay, yes, he needs to go and throw punches and catch the judge's eyes and throw flurries and combinations. But as you've already alluded to, that puts you in the firing line. Particularly with somebody like Plant, who is punching and moving. That's kind of his game plan. If he's going to stop and throw 3s and 4s instead of 1s and 2s, then you leave yourself open to a potential counter punch. We didn't see a counter punch that brought the close to the show, but it was kind of the left hook that, as we mentioned earlier, that Canelo was throwing and Plant was kind of, I want to say avoiding, but he certainly wasn't getting caught clean with it. I think Canelo landed a left hook. I think it might have been in that 6th round where he had a good round. And it was a similar shot that brought the end in the 11th. But that lead left hook is some shot, and also the right uppercut that followed it and sent Plant to the canvas.
He dips down with it, see, like not quite like Povetkin, doesn't go right over the front knee, but he dips down with it, so he comes out, uses his legs and everything with the taller fighter. So he couldn't quite get it right on the night because he was no, his feet were flat on the, not flat-footed, but his feet were flat on the floor. When he slides into distance, normally his feet are quite flat on the floor, so he'll just turn from the waist and he'll throw the left hook. But he's always in range because he throws it quite long, but because Plant was using all that height and leaning right back, and because he had the shoulder turn, he puts his right shoulder, his back shoulder further than it normally would be, and his head was right over the shoulder, so he's too far away from Canelo to hit him with anything. So Canelo had to jump in, but you're not going to jump in because it's a risk of you getting caught yourself. But that one time he was out of distance, he dipped over the front knee and it wasn't where it was almost like a timeout, wasn't it? Where nothing was really happening. There was a little move from Plant, and he dipped down. Seen him switch off for a second.
It literally came out of nowhere, didn't it?
It's almost like he thought, I've had enough now. Like this, I've done I'm going to finish it. It feels like that's the thing with Canelo. It always feels like that with him. Then you sort of alluded to that earlier, like that air of something's going to happen. I didn't quite feel that. But then when you look back on what he did, you think he probably could have done that any time he wanted to. I mean, any time after the fifth, sixth round, he probably could have thrown that combination any time. But he thought he's not quite ready yet.
Yeah,
and that's an intelligence and a knowing when he's ready to go.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It does. It seems like it's coming out of nowhere at the time, and then you look back at it and you see the amount of times where, and this is something that I wanted to discuss with you with having Plant against the rope. A lot of times Canelo was holding him there with the lead left hand, and kind of looking for the openings, digging the right hook or the overhand right hook to the body that he was throwing, and also putting that left hook to the body and trying to vary it to the head as well. But it almost feels like, and obviously it kind of is, particularly in hindsight, that was a big setup all along, and he was setting him up and holding him there, and then sometimes digging the right hand to the body, and eventually it was a case of one time you're going to go here and you're going to leave the openings for me to land that big left hook, and that's what happened.
I know when they have a plan, and like Eddie Reynolds was saying, stick to the plan. I always say like that. It's almost foolish. Like Joe Gallagher's massive for plans, isn't he? Game plans for fights. You have to have a game plan, of course, for every fight. I think I never had one, but mine was just run and survive. But no, you have to. I understand you have to have a game plan, but the game plan has to be so fluid because so many different things can happen. You're relying on, if you have a rigid game plan, you're relying on when you do something, he or she will do something
to counteract
that you're expecting them to do after you've done that. But they don't know, that doesn't always work. So you have to be able to think on your feet, which means your plan has to be really stretchable. So you see sometimes with the Quigg, just go after Quigg and Frampton. I'm not trying to dig Joe Gallagher out, but after Quigg and Frampton, they had an idea where Frampton was going to tire or whatever, and and just make him work, and then we'll get him, and never quite worked out. And then they were confused after 6 rounds. Well, why are we? Well, they were winning the fight or whatever it was, But having a rigid game plan. But I think with Canelo, it's not foolish; it's arrogance. It works, so you can understand why. We're going to stick this game plan. You watch. We're just going to do this every time. It's going to work, and it works every time. We've got a winning formula that will work, and you have to stick with it. Even if you get into round 11, even if you get into round 12, you'll get him in the last 30 seconds. Don't worry about it. I think they believe, like, as long as I just keep doing what I'm doing, in the end, then that opportunity that he saw will be there. All you have to do is say switched on enough to see it and know when to pull the trigger. I think it's a dangerous game to play, but when you're that good and you're that confident and you have that enough arrogance, but it's not over no arrogance bordering on genius, maybe, who knows? But why would you want to change it? I think he could have gone a lot earlier, and I don't know. And if he can, why would you leave it longer? Because that gets to the last round. Obviously, it didn't matter because he was winning handily on all the judges' scorecards. But if some of the judges seen it differently, which they could have easily.
Yeah, because there was a lot of close rounds in there. Certainly 2 or 3.
Yeah, a lot of non-event, a lot of rounds where no one was hitting massively clean. So they're scrappy rounds to score. And you got to feel that yourself. But but he also knows that. Sorry, my voice is a bit gravelly. I'm trying to be sexier now to get more work. I think I got this. I got to start using it. But yeah, I don't know. I tend to think that he knows what the judges like in Nevada, so he's tailored his style towards that. But yeah, he's unified the division. Like When did he was super
December.
middleweight a year ago.
So it's in the space of 11 months.
It's just crazy, isn't it?
Mm.
There's a lot of it to do with the power of his commercial value, more than anything. Because who doesn't want to fight Canelo?
Mm.
Regardless of good or bad he is, whatever, you want to fight him because that's your going home money. That's your, I can retire now, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I got 5 million, 6 million, 10 million, 3 million, whatever it is. It's millions more than you get for fighting anybody else in that division. That's the truth. Because it's not a division, swimming in talent or superstars, to be honest.
Certainly no big name fights.
No, they're good fighters, but there's no wow factors in there really, except for him. And he gets up, but to still do it and want to do it when you don't have to, by the way, because that doesn't taint his legacy if he doesn't unify that division. It doesn't. There's other things that might taint his legacy, maybe, but that's not one of them. So he wanted to do that. Imagine having that power. I want to do this.
And all the governing bodies go, well, okay.
And all the fighters go,
exactly,
yes, please, mate, yes, please. No, in deep down, no. If he couldn't sell a ticket, look at Golovkin. He don't sell it. No, he's not a star of him. He's a big star in the boxing world, but commercially he's not huge. I wouldn't have thought outside. No, the pay-per-view probably doesn't do great with him on his own.
Well, let's just have to look at him when he was at middleweight, when he couldn't get the other champions in the ring.
No, so you avoid him like the plague. Even though he's good, even though you want to test yourself against the best, don't look at your phone while I'm talking. It's so unprofessional.
I was putting it on airplane mode.
No,
now.
No, I was going to say halfway through, but we've got another 3 hours to get halfway through. Yeah, the fact that but they want to fight him regardless because of that. But he still did it, and he wanted to do it, and you have to say wow for that. That's something else. It really is to have as many fights as he's had in that short periods of time anyway. But to unify a division within 12 months. When really, and you haven't nicked 2 belts at the time, you haven't, not like what Josh Taylor did with Ramirez, and they've had 2 belts met. It was literally picking them up one at a time. That's right, didn't it? One at a time, wasn't it at the time?
Yeah, the WBC was on the line. The vacant WBC was on the line against Callum Smith.
Yeah.
So that was the WBC.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So a vacant belt, and then obviously he had to go and defend it against Avni Yildirim, which is a worthy first defense to really solidify that status as WBC champion.
Hey, but listen though, you got a champion and a superstar fighting that regular. You'll take it. I think we said this before.
Yeah, that's how to deal with a pesky mandatory. You put it in between fights, which is of course what he's done. You mentioned the Callum Smith fight, Billy Joe Saunders. Now we've seen Caleb-Plant. Where does the performance against Caleb-Plant match up to the Billy Joe, the Callum Smith fight? Was obviously not to take anything away from Caleb-Plant, but was that the best of Canelo we saw on Saturday night?
It didn't feel like it.
I agree.
Do you give Plant that credit, or do you just think Canelo? I don't know. It's a bit of both. I think you give Plant that credit for making it a bit awkward. I just think Canelo a little bit flat. He seemed to me. I don't think it's all the fights. I just think I think he went into this fight thinking this is going to be easier than the others. Because he's not as big as
Callum Smith.
As Callum Smith, and he's probably not as he probably thought he's not as fast or as tricky as Billy Joe Saunders. So he thought, he's good, but he does nothing better than him. That's it sort of felt like that as well, didn't it? He's good. So he probably thought he could walk through him. And he looked a little bit lethargic at times. But also, I think Plant's tactics were pretty good with that trying to imitate the Mayweather type movement, to make him a harder target to hit clean. But yeah, I still think probably the Callum Smith fight is probably a better all-round win, maybe because of the size. You'd say Billy Joe, because he got rid of him early, and Billy was potentially had the style that caused him nightmares. But I still think that the sheer size of Callum Smith was harder to overcome. It didn't turn out that way, but on paper it was harder to overcome because he's so big, he is huge. That's like fighting a light heavyweight, and not a small light heavyweight either, by the way. So,
we've seen him at 175. He still looks massive.
Yeah, he still looks too big for the weight, doesn't he? Yeah. So I think that's probably is the best win for him. Yeah, at that weight.
And of course, in this crazy old sport, we only give Canelo, about 10 minutes until he has his post-fight interview before we talk about what's next. What next for him? I mean, obviously the world is oyster anyway, regardless of kind of what happens.
That's it. Does a world tour. I think he should. I think he should do a world tour. I don't see what meaningful fights out there for him except now really. So you wait for someone else to emerge, or you go to light heavyweight. Now he can go to light heavyweight and he can beat everyone. But I just think how many risks you take now, because he can't get any better, can he? I don't know.
I think maybe he can get better at 168. I don't think him at 175 will see a better version of him up there. I think naturally, I think against Kovalev, I felt like he was flat in that fight. Yeah. I didn't feel like that was the best version of him.
And no, he could beat Beterbiev. I mean, I'd maybe make him favourite to beat him. Not a massive favourite, but what I just see again for the risk of what you've won a title at that weight. Kovalev's a good fighter. I know he's not the Kovalev that was the Kovalev, but still a good enough name, and you've done that. Where'd you go? Like winning this again doesn't do any more for you. You're getting big money fights. You boxing Beterbiev or Liam Williams if he moved up it's the same amount of money for Canelo. It's not for them maybe, but the same amount of money for Canelo because he's the selling point wherever he fights. Look, he'll get more for boxing Golovkin again. Maybe that's the option. Boxes Golovkin again. But that's probably the biggest money fight for him, possibly. Charlos, they're all risky fights for him if they move up in weight and they can be comfortable at that weight. But they're not huge sellers. I wouldn't have thought yet. They're not superstars in the sport. I wouldn't have thought.
I think the Charlo fight on pay-per-view in America is a big fight. I think that's a big fight.
It's a big.
But again, I get
it's a bigger fight. But it's all about Canelo.
Yeah.
Really. That's what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying.
Whoever he fights, right? He if he says I want 20 million, he gets 20 million. There's a limit to how much he'll get, I would imagine. But that Golovkin thing was probably a different level altogether. But that was probably the biggest thing you've ever got. But all the others, no. There's no huge names around him. I wouldn't have thought other superstars to rival him. There might be fighters that could beat him, but I think the longer he stays around, the more chance he got to beat him. I know boxing's no boxing, no life, which is a great motto, of course. But what do you do? Like where's the inspiration come from? No.
Well, he said to Buncey that he feels he's got 7 years left in him, 7 years left in him. So I mean,
maybe because then a whole new generation emerges. It's 3-year cycles in boxing usually, isn't it?
Yeah.
No more or less. I mean, longer nowadays actually, which is not a good thing for the sport, by the way. The longer these fighters stay on, it almost like smothers the development of the next generation in a weird sense. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's almost like they take all the work.
Well, it's sort of when even as recently was when Pacquiao was kind of hovering around. Everyone wanted the Pacquiao fight, and it holds up a whole division. Yeah, it's similar with Canelo. It was the same with Mayweather. It was the same to a lesser extent with Anthony Joshua when he held the belts at heavyweight. People want to see what the money man's doing, and obviously he's not been around for the same length of time as Pacquiao or Mayweather. But yeah, it does kind of hold things up a little bit when you've got the money guy in the division.
You're all chasing him, and also the public only want to see him against you because he's a recognisable name. But you really got to be building the other generation up so people all know their names. And like Crawford and Spence, who are now in their 30s, by the way. We want them to meet now. They still feel to me like the young generation, but they're not now. They're going to be past their peak now in a minute, and never going to fight. But so where does Canelo go? Wherever he wants to. That's the truth of it. Whatever he wants to do, he could do a world tour, box all around the world, like true superstars of the sport used to do. And in real fights, not like having exhibition fights or boxing people who are not good enough to beat him. He could come over to the UK and box wherever he wanted to. Give us a name, I don't know. Zach Parker.
Yeah, Zach Parker's the WBO man.
That's not a real fight for him, is it? No disrespect to Zach. He's a good boxer. He was good on Saturday night, but it's not. It don't seem a good fight for him on paper because they're leagues apart at the minute. But he could box people. There's people he could box who are decent names, but. What does he do?
So I think it's difficult because it's sort of like no matter if he went up and he beat Beterbiev and Bivol and everybody would be talking about okay, we'll go to cruiserweight and fight Bradis or whoever, a Coley or somebody like that. So it feels like
Bradis would beat him.
Yeah, he would because he's fucking massive. He's 200 pounds, and he's
good.
And yeah, exactly, and he's really good. So, but this kind of where I'm going with it, there are fights that I still really want to see Canelo in, but I also have him a significant favourite, if that makes sense. Yeah. So the Charlo fight, for example, bringing him up from 160 to 168, I would make Canelo a sizable favourite in that fight. But still quite like to see it. Same with David Benavidez, who of course is in action this weekend. Yeah. Dimitri Bivol and Beterbiev obviously moving up to 175 adds that kind of element of additional risk. I'd still make Canelo a favourite over Dimitri Bivol. Yeah. I think I probably would, gun to my head, go with Beterbiev over Canelo. I think he's still got more left in him than people. I think when he boxed Adam Dines, people were looking at it going, okay, Beterbiev's been out of the ring. He's been blah, blah, blah. Let's see if he's lost a step. And then because it went rounds, everyone went, yep, he's lost a step.
Yeah.
I feel like, people were looking to say that about Beterbiev. I think Beterbiev is still an incredibly dangerous man. But Benavidez, Bivol, Charlo, and he mentioned the UK, so you've got like Zach Parker, Eubank, to those two to a lesser degree than Charlo and Benavidez. I'd make him a significant favourite against, but I wouldn't mind seeing, Canelo Charlo next, Canelo Benavidez next, Canelo Bivol.
The best fight to watch is him and Golovkin.
Yeah, again, I wouldn't mind seeing that.
It's like, for me now, even though I thought Golovkin won the 2 fights, the first one especially, Canelo's a massive favourite in that fight. But I don't think that'll ever be a bad fight. Ever. Just because of the styles. It would never be a bad fight. I think Canelo is the fresher now, 2 by far. And it was always going to be the case. And I think he wins more convincingly. He actually wins convincingly this time. He actually wins this time. But whichever you see it.
Yeah.
But I still think that it's still a great fight to watch. That's the truth of it. Because there's always an air that Golovkin can still, can still bang, still hurt you. He'll still be competitive in that fight. And I think someone said recently that Golovkin, I don't know who said it, Golovkin lost a step or something like that. I can't see I can't remember who said it.
I think we were discussing it on here. The review.
Someone on TV said it. Like I said, something like Golovkin's old or lost a thing. And he might not be the same Golovkin he was, but maybe back in 2005 or whatever, 10 or whatever it was. But he's still good enough.
Yeah. Well, I thought against Derevianchenko, he looked like he'd lost a little bit of a step. Derevianchenko's a good fighter, by the way. It's not like but then I felt like even though Zeramita is not a real barometer for measuring against the elite guys, I still feel like Golovkin looked a lot fresher in that fight than we've seen him in a long time. So I think the Murata fight would obviously tell us a little bit about him, because that's always been a fight that you would have always picked Golovkin to win, at a canter.
Yeah, because it's stylistic.
It's a great fight for him.
Yeah.
So if he boxes Murata and potentially struggles in that fight, well, you never know, he might get beat. I think when you get to that level or that age that Golovkin's at, with all the amateur fights and the pro fights, you never know.
Fight for Golovkin, because if he doesn't look great against Murata, then he has lost a step or two, because he's a good fighter, Murata, but he's tough. But he could be hit. I mean, he's not hard to hit. He might be able to take a shot, but that's the sort of opponent that Golovkin loves, because he can pound you. I don't think Golovkin wants to knock you out straight away. I think he wants to whack you and whack you and whack.
It's sort of a systematic beating, isn't it? He breaks you down.
I don't think he's malicious about it. No. I just think that's what he likes. Shot. And then just see you slowly crumble. He quite likes that.
Yeah, I think. I don't know.
Hang on, my phone. Go on.
I think with the Golovkin trilogy, I think there are probably other fights that I would pick to see before that, but without the kind of. I agree with you.
If you haven't seen him, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. But without the kind of almost guarantee of knowing that it'll be a great fight, like Canelo Golovkin 3 would be. I would like to see a Benavidez or even a Charlo get their shot, I guess you could call it. And I think because we haven't seen those, and you'd have more unanswered questions around those fights than you would around Canelo Golovkin 3. I think Canelo bringing Golovkin up to 168, where he's now settled in at the weight. All right, not natural 168 pounder, but Gennady Golovkin, career middleweight, he's always somebody who could go down as opposed to going up.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So him bringing him up to 168 now, and let's say, I don't know, Golovkin gets a 116, 112 type decision against Ryota Murata, you could only really see a third fight going one way.
Yeah, well, you're going to see that anyway, to be honest. But I think it'd be a fight where you sort of know the winner, which again, it's weird. A fight where you know. But
you'd kind of know the winner anyway, no matter who he boxes, unless it's Beterbiev, I think.
So I was saying, I was going to say, a fight when you know a winner, is that really a fight? No, that's almost as bad as having a rematch clause. Because you don't matter. It doesn't matter if I lose. I know I'm going to get another shot. So it's a little bit like that. Is it a fight if you know the winner is going to be pretty much? In boxing, anything can happen, but most of the time at this level, the better fighter usually wins. Usually, not always, because one punch can change it and blah blah blah, and injuries and all that crap. But usually, the better fighter, 9 times out of 10, wins the fight. And Canelo's probably the better fighter now. He's a better all-round fighter for sure, but he's probably better now in his age and freshness and all the rest of it. But it's still a good fight to watch. And we know it's guaranteed a good fight. Where Charlo might be a good... I'm sure that would be a great fight, but we don't know it because he hasn't really boxed anywhere near that level. Same with Benavidez. No, you think because of the size of him, he got everything, ticks all the boxes to cause Canelo nightmares. But, I don't know.
Yeah, I think...
Because, he does something to you, Canelo. He puts a fear into some fighters. He didn't do it to Plant, to be fair. Didn't put the fear into Plant. Plant's a tough kid. I think he showed the other night how tough he is, to be fair to him. But, because he wasn't scared of Canelo, even if he wasn't as good as him. But he does have to some fighters. He puts the fear of God into him. Makes you second-guess every move you make because you're afraid to make a mistake because he hits you on the arm so hard or hits you in the kidneys. Because, by the way, Plant is still pissing blood today. I'm telling you. Like, them shots there, you don't walk away scot-free for them shots, like around the back like that. No chance. But it's his own fault because he offered it up to him as well, by the way. Because that whole Mayweather thing is a cheat. You can't turn your back on him, but you almost turn your back on him. Not quite, but you almost do. So you're taking away half of the target to hit. And not by the within the rules of blocking, you're turning your body away. It's mad. I maybe would stick the elbow up as well, which is another illegal shot. You should put a glove on that, really. It's like, you should have. It's genius because you get away with it, But Plant also hold on to it. When Canelo was trying to push the arms down a little bit, and push him back.
Should Canelo have been warned more for that, do you think?
Yeah, but I also think Plant should be warned for holding on to him as well. Because he was only went like that. Plant made him crap. Oops, sorry.
Getting excited now.
How many times have I had fights with the microphone?
Still hasn't knocked one out.
It's bigger than me. I still haven't knocked one out. I'll take you outside and beat you on points. You carry on. He grabbed you with the elbow like this, and he just keep hold of Canelo then. And it looked like Canelo was pushing him. He's actually, I think, a little bit trying to get the release to throw the shot because he wanted to push you back and then go whap with the hook. But Plant cleverly, just went, okay, well, I'll hold on to you then. I did it again. Calm down, you.
Before we move on, we've mentioned about what's potentially next for Canelo Alvarez. What about Canelo-Plant? I think his stock, if it's fair to say, will probably have risen on Saturday night. Where would you like to see him go next?
I think his stock has risen, but I'm not sure whether the TV execs will think, oh, they see him again because of the way you have to fight. I think you have to fight that way, I think, to survive against Canelo or make it awkward or possibly win. But I don't think they would have been adhered to it. That's the worry. So his stock has risen now. He did okay, better than what everyone thought he would do in the boxing world. So you go, oh, he might beat Callum Smith. No, Callum Smith moved up, but he might be the second best super middleweight around now. If Billy Joe comes back, he beat Billy Joe Saunders now all of a sudden. Those things might be said.
That's not a fight that I would like to see.
But that's exactly
style-wise based on.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
Obviously, you think, but. Yeah, those belts are going to fragment now. He's not going to keep all those belts because the WBO are going to order Zach Parker, so he's going to go. Well, unless I want to come to the UK for a holiday. And again, it's no disrespect to Zach Parker. There's just facts, isn't it? It's just what am I going to fight him for? What do I get for that? Unless they're going to pay me like more money than I've ever earned before to come over there because there's nothing. It's not a no lose situation for him because he knows he can beat him. But he knows no one outside of the UK is going to care about that. And most people inside the UK are not going to care about that. That's just the facts. So, and also, where does he go?
Pride Park.
No, I mean, where does he go on? What network has he?
Yeah.
Because all good for Frank wanting to say this, I'm doing the best for my fighter. But you got to do the best for his not his bosses, but for BT Sport. And you got to have that on BT Sport. We can't have Canelo's boxing on BT Sport. Yeah, I got the Zach Parker fight, Canelo. Yeah. We went to purse bids though, and it's on the zone. They're going what the or it's on Sky, or whoever wins the purse bids, or Fight Zone, or whoever, Probellum. Whoever gets it, like Box Nation's still going. They just go, well, hang on, Frank, like the biggest star in the world is boxing your fighter on another channel right next to our TV studio. There's been the Copper Box, for instance, which is right next to BT Sport. No, it wouldn't happen. But say, so how does that fight ever materialise? It's just that the belts go. Zach Parker boxes someone else for the vacant title. He gets a chance to win a world title. And Canelo doesn't need belts now. I don't think.
Well, he's already become undisputed now, isn't he? So
he should just go like that. Get his magic staff, bang it on the floor on top of the mountain, go, and make all the belts disappear. I don't need a belt now. There's a King Canelo belt. That's it, isn't it? Yeah.
Don't give him any more. Right?
Follow my lead. No, but I think he doesn't need it now. He's above all that. Like, to be fair, because whoever he wants to, if he says to Beterbiev, I want to fight you, and they go, yeah, okay then, but I got to do my mandatory. Get rid of your belt. I want to fight you in March. You go, yeah, but I got a mandatory in February.
And it's always worth pointing out that the governing bodies will, nobody is going to strip. The IBF do some crazy things sometimes, but more than likely, the IBF, the WBO, whoever, are not going to say to their champion, okay, well, you have to fight this mandatory, rather than us getting the sanctioning fees of you boxing Canelo Alvarez.
But they should.
They're not going to.
Not for us fans want to see Canelo box everyone, but they should.
For the structure of the sport.
It's their bloody rules, isn't it?
Yeah,
it suits them when it suits them. Like, their rule. I'm on about their rules are like what a game plan should be for a boxer. They're bendy and as fluid as possible. They really are, aren't they? Yes, well, there's a hydration clause. Not for you though, mate. You're okay. Oh yeah, need a drug test. No, you're all right. You don't need one. Do it next week. Or the week after. Okay, the week after. No, okay, not at all. Okay, it's fine.
Just let us know. We'll backdate it.
Yeah. You're not champion anymore. You just got beat. Okay, we'll make you our champion, super duper.
Franchise in recess.
Yeah, absolutely fabulous champion you can be. So you'll never lose your belt. They just make it up as they go along, don't they? And I understand like this financial game, but And for Canelo, the WBC, they got a relationship. So
he's a franchise champion.
At any weight, is that any weight?
Any weight?
That's just bollocks.
That's at any weight, non-title fight, otherwise.
That's just ridiculous. Like, it don't make any sense.
I was supposed to speak to Mauricio today, actually. So yeah, I'm wondering what kind of.
They gave you a fucking belt. So
they give everyone a belt.
You know what I mean?
Give everyone a belt. Okay, and moving on, we've already discussed him at some points of this. Obviously, with what lies ahead for Canelo Alvarez, his WBO mandatory Zach Parker was in action this past weekend. Stoppage win over Marcus Morrison. Did a good job on Marcus Morrison. Yeah. We've seen Marcus Morrison obviously lose. He went the distance with Eubank. We saw him have that really torrid fight years ago with Jason Wellborn, but we've not seen him dealt with as swiftly and as comfortably, really, as Zach Parker did this past weekend.
I think Zach Parker's massively underrated. Hugely underrated. Like, the problem is that no one knows who he is yet. They will now, though. That will help the other night. I think Marcus Morrison was a good fight for him, but never a fight you thought he was going to lose. But also, I didn't think he'd stop him, and I think that's impressive. The fact he did a better job than Eubank, because Eubank's a big name, that helps him hugely. I think it was good matchmaking. That he'd only just boxed Eubank. You had to go the distance with Eubank, and he does the job on him. And then as soon as he got the ring, he calls Eubank out. So it's clever. And I don't know how many tickets he sells. If he is a big ticket seller, who knows? When Nathan Heaney's boxing, who knows who sells any tickets? It was packed when I boxed. Wasn't you though? But and yeah. So I think it's. I still think he needs a couple of more meaningful fights, and I mean a couple, not just the one more. But he's not going to get it. That's the worry. He might fight for the world title, a vacant world title against someone who's not, real world level. Like the guy Billy Joe Saunders boxed to win the super-featherweight title.
Shifat Asufi.
I worked that night. I can't remember his name, but yeah, he might get someone like him. Then he gets a win. You know what I mean? When it played the organisational ranking game. But if he gets a real, genuine, world-class fighter, not saying he can't do it, but again, a bit like Plant against Canelo, there's a massive unknown that he hasn't got nowhere near that level yet. Marcus Morrison is not the benchmark to go to fight for the world title or to see if he's ready for the world title. That's the benchmark to say, I beat a good kid here, my next fight's for the British title. Make sense?
Yeah, or somebody around that kind of, that probably not somebody before like a Liam Williams type character, like somebody.
Liam Williams should be the fight that you fight for a world title, because
the
only thing I go Liam Williams now, he's Welsh, and I'll get slagged off for this, but he's a very good fighter, tough man, good fighter, lots of good skills. But people go carried away with him. They get carried away with it, like thinking he's like like he should be a world champion, and maybe he should, but he's not. The 3 times he stepped up, he's been beat. That's just the bare facts now. There's nothing against him. He's a good kid, and I wish him all. I hope he wins everything. But that's just the facts. The first Smith fight was, I thought he was winning. He was hard done by with the cuts and stuff. It's just a horrible thing that happens in life. The second fight was close, but he lost, and I think that's fair, and it was fair. And then Andrade, he clearly lost, though did quite well.
Had some moments, but it was still a decisive
But he had some moments, but he still lost. But he showed how tough and hard he is, and he'll break your heart if you can, if you're not built to sterner stuff. But still, ultimately, that's the mark where he's at. So, he would be the good fight. And if he was going up to super middleweight, that's someone like him is the fight that Zach Parker needs to take that next step to the world title. Though you don't need to nowadays, or they might for a long time now. You can bypass all that to get to world title, but you want to be prepared and you want to keep it and all the rest of it.
Well, this is the thing.
That's what I feel. And this is not a slight on Parker, but that's how Anthony did it. He showed how you could do it to get there relatively risk free. So business-wise, it might be a very intelligent move financially. I don't know. It seems like that they box Kovalev for a lot of money. But to prepare your fighter and get him ready for world class, to get him ready for when he's there, to stay there. But they all say, I don't want to be just a world champion. I want to be an undefeated, undisputed. Well, take the right bloody fights in to get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if boxers saying they got more control of their careers than they used to have, because we had no control, then you demand it. You have the right fight. Not to show how tough you are. No, not to go, I'll fight anyone. But to prepare yourself ready if you really want to be there. Some fighters don't need... Some fighters like Joe Karzagi and others, I just mentioned him because he's brilliant. But some fighters like Joe Karzagi don't need those huge tests to get there. Because one, they've had a massive amateur career. But two, you just know. With some fighters, you just know. For some, I don't know why that is. With some of them, you just know. Like Canelo, just knew. What massively huge world class fights did he have before boxing for the world title? None really. Cotto's brother, maybe. Baldomir,
Carlos Baldomir, yeah.
But way past his sell by date.
Yeah.
Good, but there was no real risky testy fight for him. But they knew because there was something you could see. Well, no, and it wasn't just a guess. You could just clearly see he was going to be good. And you see that with some special fighters. But the rest of us, and I mean, that's us and fighters better than me, you need to have a real meaningful test before you get there.
Also, the thing with, we touched on it a little bit earlier, if you're Zach Parker or you're looking after Zach Parker, he's number one with the WBO. Assuming Canelo keeps the belts at 168 pounds, well, you're not going to jeopardise the potential for a mandatory being called by fighting a fringe world level type guy like an Anthony Durrell or somebody like that, who obviously we saw this past weekend. Somebody of that ilk, somebody who's boxed to the top level, ultimately come up short. You're not going to risk your shot your potential shot at Canelo Alvarez or even fighting for a vacant title by taking those kind of middle ground fights. So that's a situation that we could find Zach Parker in.
Listen, if you think you're genuinely going to be able to fight Canelo, then you wrap yourself up in cotton wool, and when those big balls that people rolled on the grass with, put yourself in one of those and sit in your house and just have Uber Eats delivered through the little gap, and don't leave there until he's ready, because that's your go again. I keep saying that's your fight that you go home and you don't fight ever, you don't do anything ever again. You sit at home and count your money, but that's not a fight that's going to happen. And I'd be shocked if it did. And I'd love to be proved wrong. It'd be lovely for him. What a dream come true for a kid. To box Canelo when no one knows you are Canelo. It's a story that boxing's full of, actually, but it's not going to happen. I can't see it. Who's going to want like Canelo's now? He might not go back to the zone. He might stay on. He might stay.
That's the other thing, isn't it? It's where he leaves. They're
going to go. And Saul,
If it's on Showtime are going to want him to box an American that they can sell him on pay-per-view against, aren't they?
And
it's going to be Charlo or Benavidez, really.
Any American rather than him.
Yeah.
Rather than... They'd rather box...
They'd rather him box Anthony Dirrell, who also laid his claim to the Canelo fight in his post-fight interview this past weekend. Yeah. Did you see the fight, the Dirrell fight?
I did, yeah.
That uppercut, it was like...
fantastic. Like.
he threw it all the way from Flint, where he's from, didn't he? It was unbelievable. He could sort of see it coming. He got telegraphed it in.
I've just never seen he's one of those guys who wins, and you just think, how's he winning fights? He's one of those, isn't he? But he keeps winning.
So I had this conversation with somebody on Saturday night. Like, him and his brother, he kind of has the stuff that Andre missed, and Andre had the stuff that he missed. You know what I mean? Like, he had that kind of that grit and that dog style that was probably missing from Andre Dirrell's career. And Andre Dirrell was the much better technician and the much better fighter. Much better fighter, but kind of lacked some of that, whereas Anthony lacked some of the technical skills that Andre has.
That being able to win ugly is a massive skill in itself. It really is. And my trainers say better to win ugly than to lose pretty. And just win. Don't win about dog. If you keep winning in the end, they have to fight you, and you end up being good, and you earn money and all that shit. But he doesn't have that finesse and nothing about him. You don't think, I can't wait to see him again. Usually the other way, if anything. But it was a great finish.
It was a great.
But you're right. They'd rather get that 37-year-old pretty much should be retired fighter to fight Canelo than some young kid who they don't know, some young good-looking kid. He's a seller for got lots of things going for him. But that's not a marketable fight that's going to happen. And they sell over here on Canelo. Again, you sell everything on Canelo's name, but they couldn't afford it.
But again, a lot of people are talking about like Canelo potentially boxing in the UK. What's he gonna if he stays with Showtime? He's not going to box in the UK outside of primetime US pay-per-view.
The only fight he fights in the UK is Eubank Jr.
And even then, you just can't really see.
It's not a fight it's not a fight that Eubank's got a hope in hell in. But I mean, that's the only name that would possibly. There was Eubank Jr. a name in the States. I don't think he is.
I don't think so.
But maybe more.
Boxed on a couple of American cards.
Yeah, but
boxed Matt Korobov on a Charlo undercard when they were going to make Charlo Eubank.
It was helped the UK set because everyone loves the Eubank. The Eubank name's still a marketable name over here, as we've clearly seen. And Canelo's a huge name, so I think that would be the biggest commercial fight from a UK selling point. But again, every fight with Canelo is not a fight you can see. But the whole pack got to do is keep winning, and just hope he gets his shot. And his people got to push for the WBO to get that mandatory out.
I could see a situation where Canelo, even if the WBO were to order it, I could see Canelo going, well, I'm not going to do it. He would never be dictated to by a governing body. We've seen that in the past with the WBC. The WBC tried to put a 30-day negotiation thing on him with Gennady Golovkin, and he just vacated the belt. Yeah. Probably something to do with the fact that it was a very good Gennady Golovkin at the time, but also he's not going to be dictated to when he's the number one breadwinner in the sport. But I think we could see a situation where we see Zach Parker versus Demetrius Andrade for the vacant WBO 168 belt, because I think Andrade will move up from 160 and under the WBO rules would automatically become mandatory challenger at 168. I don't think we'll ever see Canelo versus Andrade for a variety of reasons. So I think we could end up seeing Demetrius Andrade versus Zach Parker, or certainly that floated for a vacant 168 title.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on. Moving back, we mentioned his name there. Nathan Heaney brought half a stoke with him again in his win this weekend against Yang. Where do you sit with Nathan Heaney? Obviously, he seems like a very self-aware guy, which is obviously great. He's kind of used as a bit of a dirty word nowadays in boxing, ticket seller, but he sells a lot of tickets, which potentially doesn't reflect on his in-ring ability at this point. No. But got the job done against a pretty awkward-looking customer this past weekend.
He's a good fighter, but again, not. You're just afraid to upset anyone, aren't you? He has a shelf life. I mean, he has a ceiling. But that's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. And I think he sort of knows that without really knowing it. The worry is the more success you have now, because he is topping bills, because he sells so many tickets, and he's marketable, he's likable. That's important. He's likable, and he sells tickets the old-fashioned way, as we spoke about before in the past. So he does great. And I love all that. And so you want him to succeed. He'll start feeding into this thing that he can be a world beater. but he's not nowhere near that level, and he's never going to be near that level. That's the truth. So he's one of those fighters, like Babbage, but not like Babbage.
I get what you're saying with kind of the marketability and promotional aspect.
You can have fun with him. You're in decent money, I think, at the level he's at. But, once he starts fighting good domestic level fighters, he's going to struggle, I feel. I'm not saying he won't beat a couple of them, but I think he'll struggle. That's how I feel with him, yeah. So this international route is a good route for him because, they're fighting. Sometimes you get a banana skin, but most times they're just tricky, awkward guys, or, the guys who will come to give you a go, but they'll walk onto a shot. And all he needs to do is keep, like Ricky Hatton did for a long time with that WBU reign, just keep him winning, keep their crowd growing. Every time he wins, 10 more people will come. 20 more, 30, 50, 100 people, more will come. It builds. And that's what they're trying to do. And in the end, they have to chuck him in. But also, the people looking after him will also should realise, because Ricky had world-class potential. That was the difference. And Nathan might improve, but I think at his age now, I don't think he's gonna massively improve. I think we've seen what he's all about, what he can do, and certainly more what he can't do. And I think he's a little bit too upright, and I think he'll take too many shots at the higher level. But he's having a time of his life.
Yeah, it looks like some atmosphere.
It's great. I don't want to watch him fight. I just want to watch his ring walk. That's it. No disrespect, Nathan. Your fight's an anticlimax. Even if it's a good fight. Because he looks so good. The ring walk, he gets the crowd going. He's immersed in it. And it's lovely to see.
It would be good. I mean, I think it's probably telling that you see a lot of fighters come through, and even like Josh Warrington. When Josh Warrington was coming through, it was always like one day I want to fight for a world title at Ellen Road, whereas with Nathan, we want to fight for the British title at the Bet365.
But hang on, not one person. Not one person. I never seen one bit of world class potential out of Josh Warrington. I didn't see it. I did not see it at all. He's a good fighter. He's neat. He's tidy. I always thought he could punch harder than what his record suggested, and he was getting better with fights, and he was beating good people. But I never saw. Once they signed for that Lee Selby fight, I went, "Oh, poor kid."
No, that's it. The wheels are going to come off.
He's going to get exposed now, bless him. But I hope this big. But I also thought, bless him, but also he's going to get beat. But he's boxing Ellen Road in front of all his home crowd with the Kaiser Chiefs singing him out. It's great for him. But he's going to get beat. Badly beat. He's going to have a boxing lesson. Lee Selby's going to stand him on his head, make him cry after 6 rounds, and Josh Warrington was going to be chasing his tail. That's what I thought he was going to do. I really did. I thought he was going to mess with his mind so much, Selby, that Warrington was going to go in a lunatic asylum for 3 months just to recover. That's what I felt like. But he boxed unbelievably well. Like, he just made me look like an idiot.
And then it was Frampton next, and everyone, okay, well, he beat Selby, but Selby was dead at the weight, and Frampton will beat him, and Frampton's more experienced.
I never made no excuses for Selby, because all those things might be true. But Warrington makes the weight easy. It is what it is. That's your choice. Whether you've got no choice, still your choice. That's how it is. That's how fights are. You got a big punch. I would have won the fight, but I can't punch. No, do you know what I mean? That's what I would have beat that Ashley Freitas if he would have stopped fucking hitting me. He beat him and he outboxed him as well. He outboxed Selby and he outpunched Frampton. Like, that's what he did. Like, they're technically more savvy than what I give him credit for. So but I didn't see the whole thing. I didn't see the world class potential, and I'm saying that with Nathan Heaney. So it all looks good for you, Nate, because I get it wrong all the time. But but I don't see. I still think Warrington was a better, neater fighter than him, because Warrington was a good amateur, and But either way, he's great to watch, and the crowd, the whole atmosphere, it makes you sort of happy, doesn't it? I think in this modern era of boxing now, when people are trying to reinvent the sport, with music and I know music, the ring walks music, but you know what I mean, the whole trying to disguise boxing with there was too much going on. Like, and this almost like the box is like the secondary most important thing of the evening, the actual fight. He makes you want to watch the fights because he gets in there and you're watching him and you're invested in him. Because he does all that with the crowd, but it's not an angry arrogance. It's like
Yeah, he seems like a real man of the people. He seems like he really has them behind
like
him.
he comes out on the stage and goes, "Wow,
Yeah,
it's like a birthday surprise, isn't it? Oh, thanks for coming. Come on, let's go."
Yeah, it's
like
it's really nice. There's a purity in it
Yeah.
that you don't get in certain.
We used to have a bloke over the pack, like used to, you know, when I was a kid, and he'd come over the pack and go, "Come on, let's go." We always used to follow him. No, that didn't happen actually, but
Seems like one of you. I was thinking, please don't.
No, but he's great to watch, and yeah, and I think and we all want to say, no, if you haven't got world class potential, who gives a shit? That's the problem nowadays. And does it matter?
This is the thing, we've spoken about it several times before. You know, saying like for Nathan Heaney that he wanted, like, the dream is a British title fight at the Bet 365. That's brilliant.
That was my dream.
Exactly, it's a brilliant thing. You know, just you've mentioned it and alluded to it several times in the past. Nowadays, it's like if you're not a world champion, you're shit, which is obviously not the case. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting, exciting journey with Nathan Heaney. I used to live in Stoke, lovely part of the world. So a little part of me really does hope that he gets that British title fight at the 365. Somebody who he could end up fighting for it, Denzel Bentley, returned this past weekend. Obviously, the first time we've seen him since he was dealt with in a pretty swift fashion by Felix Cash, another very good fighter in the middleweight division.
Really good Cash.
But Denzel Bentley, went in there, got the job done, and back to winning ways.
Yeah, and I think that's the fight he needed. I think that confidence building back to back. Not that you won't think he needed it, but you do. After any defeat's bad, but a crushing defeat like that against Cash, where he went in with no doubt he was going to deal with Cash. That's the truth. And he had no doubt in his mind he was going to walk through him, and he got it was nothing but the reverse. So yeah, that confidence boosting fight to get back into winning ways, and he's still good, and he can still be a champion. He can still win a British title. I think Cash has his number because Cash could outbox him as well as stop him. So I just think, yeah,
I think Cash is sorry to interrupt. I think Cash is very underrated. I think he can really fight.
I don't know what it is with Cash. I don't know whether they're thinking about how they market him or whatever, or they're waiting long for something, but. They gotta be careful with him. I think we push him on because he seems a bit too quiet. For the talent he has, there must be something not right because he's too quiet.
He was in line. He was really under consideration to box Demetrius Andrade. Demetrius Andrade is boxing Jay Quigley at the end of the month, but apparently he was very much in that conversation. It was going to be either Jay Quigley or Felix Cash. I think Tony Sims wants one more. But yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I think he's certainly competitive against Demetrius Andrade. But again, whether or not he wins,
I'd take him two more fights is not a bad idea.
Yeah,
because I think Andrade is one of those enigma types that I think there's something built up about him that he's massively avoided because he's so good. I don't think it's the case. He is good and he's talented and he's awkward and he's horrible and all those things that you don't want to fight. But he's avoided because of that. Because who wants to watch him fight? To beat Canelo. He has to make it a stinker of a fight. To beat Golovkin, he has to make it a stinker of a fight. So who wants to watch that? What TV company is going to go? It's not right because the right fighter should get the right fight. But no, these people who have commercial values, again, they're going to go, that's what he's avoided because they're like, I'm not watching that. I'm not making that fight. It's not going to be good to watch. It's not. The Williams fight was quite entertaining. But down to Williams because he pushed it because he was tough. Either he got comprehensively beat, but it was because of that he has to draw. I was in one good fight, two good fights, one I won. That's because of the other guy. Because I was the same. I wasn't as good as Andrade, but I was brought in to watch. So I understand that. You don't get the opportunities because people don't want to. People are not clamoring. They want to watch you fight. So and Andrade, that's what it is. He's not avoided because everyone thinks he's gonna get beat by him. He's some unbeatable superstar. That's not the case, and it's not. But so Cash can give him a run for his money. But I think Tony Sims is right. Again, I can't say the same about one fight and not the other. Wait until he's shown or boxed a fight that's just below that level and done a good job, and then he's ready. Yeah, and he's young. He's still young, but he should be having more fights. He don't fight regular enough, and that's the worry for me. And they are quiet with him, especially the Matchroom where they really shout about their fighters more than any other, and they don't shout about him.
I think he needs a fight to really build on that momentum that he got from the Bentley fight. I think he had Wellborn before that, then Bentley, and you kind of want him to now step up. Somebody fringe world class guy like a off spitball off the top of my head, something like a Rob Brandt, somebody like that.
Yeah.
Somebody who's been there and kind of been around. I mean, he's
Yeah.
obviously just got beat by Alan Canelu, who I think is a really, really good fighter. I think he's going to take some beating at 160. But somebody like that would be good. But anyway, let's move on because as we always do, we've ran over time. This weekend, Kid Galahad returns against Kiko Martinez, who was fought.
Can I stop you?
Go on.
Hannah Rankin won a world title on Friday.
We were going to come on to Hannah Rankin, but yes, Hannah Rankin did win a world title.
I forget. I didn't see it 'cause I was working in Belfast. But yeah, there's another world champion for Britain. There's another world champion there. Sorry, I got a bit of a cold, so I'm mumbling. Another world champion for Great Britain, which is fantastic. And she paid her dues. She worked the hard way. She's been the world level before, been beat.
She's fought pretty much all of the fighters available to her to fight. She's fought Clarissa Shields. She's fought Savannah Marshall. I've only met Hannah Rankin once, but she was very, very nice at the time.
Yeah, she came on Box Nation with us. She did. She was lovely.
Everybody who I've spoken to says the same thing about her. Craig Scott, who works at Boxing Social, always says the same. They do a lot of work and have done over the years. So yeah, congratulations to Hannah Rankin, new world champion in Britain. That's great. So thanks very much for reminding me. Even though we were going to come on to that, Hannah, I promise. But now that's out of the way, congratulations again. Kid Galahad versus Kiko Martinez. Kiko's somebody who's fought pretty much half of the people that we've spoken about already so far. Underwhelming one, I think it's fair to say, for Kid Galahad's first defence, particularly with how good he's looked in recent fights.
He looked, against Jazza Dickens, I said something, I think I said he was like a stone cold killer. Like, I hate saying the word killer and things like that on boxing, but he was just so focused. You could just see that. Like, I don't care. You could have been doing all sorts of things, tickling his face and everything. He wouldn't have blinked at once. He had the focus on Dickens, who's a good fighter, by the way.
Was in good form as well.
Yeah, he was in good form, and he was full of confidence, and rightly so. And he just dealt with him with ease. It was with ease. Like, I love Jazza Dickens, so I don't like saying it. But yeah, Galahad was brilliant. He really was. And yeah, I think he destroys Martinez.
It's a terrible fight for Kiko at this stage.
Because Galahad's a massive featherweight. He's a lightweight, really. He's not massively tall, but he's big and strong. And yeah, and the way he was against, he got that Ingle style with his hands high, which was a nightmare. You know what I mean? He has that, like, he never wastes a punch. The judgment, the distance is fantastic. Every shot is heavy.
He's nasty as well in there. When he's in the ring, he's cerebral, so he doesn't ever lose his. Don't ever see him losing his temper or wasting shots, as you've just said there, or kind of when he picks up the pace again, it's sort of methodical, and he seems to enjoy really breaking fighters down.
He was a stone cold killer because he had the focus he had was irrelevant what Jazza was doing. There was no empathy there or nothing. He just like, you are having it. Like, this is it. I don't care. Every round, bam, 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 bam. And every round's the same. I don't care. I don't care if you're crying. No, that don't happen. But you know what I mean? He was just so focused on doing the job that nothing mattered.
You sort of see sometimes with fighters where they're dominating a fight and it kind of gets down to it and they're 8-9 rounds up with the last championship rounds and you think, and they kind of, I say coast, but they decide, okay, well, the fight's won, but there was never any of that. He stopped over at the end of the 11th round, Jazza Dickens. And every round that was going, you could sort of see him. He wasn't going to slow down and stop. He said, I think in his post-fight interview, all he was thinking in his head, I've got to smash this guy. That's all I got to do. That's all I got to do. And it's sort of nice to see. Not very nice if you're a fan of Jazza Dickens, of course, but
it is. To keep that concentration level, like how fit you got to be. To keep that concentration level constant for that many rounds, it takes a massive fitness. It really does, because it's a real draining thing to do. And you know what we've seen now, but like, that's Usyk makes you engage your brain more than you used to, and it knackers people out. But like, Galahad was on it. He was brilliant. I thought he was fantastic. But Martinez, at this stage of his career,
he's made
the natural size he is, and the way he fights, he's going to get bashed up. Listen, he's one of those Martinez. He can pull things out of the bag, but you can't keep saying that forever. You just can't, like, you can't. And Zelfa Barrett, who's a good fighter, is a different level to Barry, the second best Barry from the Yemen. He's true. He's better than he is. Like, you know, it's a different level right now. So yeah, it's going to be a hard night. They've dragged him in really. He's at that stage of his career now, Martinez. He's just hanging on for paydays.
It's a name that still carries some sort of recognition in the UK audience, isn't it?
Yeah, it do. But he's not the Martinez was a super bantamweight.
Oh no,
and no, it's nowhere near that. And he has power, but he's going to walk through him. He's going to take the shots on the gloves. He's going to block and hit with the same hand. And yeah, because Martinez is incredibly tough, it might go 7 rounds.
Where would you like to see? I mean, assuming that nothing happens, that nothing untowards happens this weekend, and Kid Galahad makes a successful first defence. Josh Warrington is now kind of away from the Mauricio Lara kind of saga. That's a potential fight. Emmanuel Navarrete, or however you want to pronounce it, he's up there now at featherweight. There's Gary Russell, who's he's due a fight. I guess he's always due a fight.
No, it's a couple of years' time.
Yeah,
he's booked in for 2015.
You would think that Barry Kid Galahad would want to get Kiko Martinez out of the way and push on for one of those big fights at 126 pounds.
Well, also you got Leewood versus Michael Conlan, which is probably going to go St. Paddy's Day in Madison Square Garden. You would have thought. So I think that seems the likeliest.
That'd be nice.
Be great win. I'd go for that.
Yeah, I think if they do it there, I'll go to that.
Yeah, we'll do a boxing social special. So
all right, okay, you heard it here first.
So I don't have to pay. But that'd be great. It'd be great. That's a good fight, that, see. So there's no the thing is, there's fighters within their camp. There's Leewood straight away. So even though Conlan's been ordered, who's to say Leewood don't relinquish that and fight Kid Galahad for big money? I think the Conlan fight's probably a bigger money financially maybe. But either way, there's plenty of fights out there domestically. That's the good thing. And Warrington, he almost feels like he's being forgotten about a little bit. But the thing is, I think that him and Galahad would be a better fight now. The first fight was horrible to watch. It was awful. But there's a different confidence to both now, to be honest. And I thought Warrington just nicked it, by the way. So the first fight, and it was one of those fights that you could see it easy.
Yeah, I had it a draw.
Yeah. Shit house. But either way, but I think this fight would be good, because I think the way he boxed the other night, if he continues to box like that, he's a problem for anyone. And exciting to watch as well, by the way, because he forces you to fight. That's the difference. The other Galahad, who dances around, makes you miss, he'll just frustrate you, and tie you up, make it awkward, and that's like the whole like just do enough, nick around, and that But the Galahad we seen win the world title, he didn't nick around. He went up and grabbed the run by the scruff of the neck, didn't he? So that's what. So he can do that now. Let's do that. And Warrington still maybe he might not be frail. He might be frail, But
this is what I was going to say. We've seen a vulnerability in Warrington certainly in the first Lara fight, obviously, that we'd not seen in his career so far. So, and also Galahad, having felt hard done by in the first fight, might want to rubber stamp the win even more anyway, and try and win convincingly or clearly, win at all in a rematch. So I think that's a fight, and they don't like each other, and it's still something
and
that.
Also, Warrington, that Lara thing's finished now.
You would think.
Only because they don't need him now. But it's not really finished, is it? Because the second fight was very inconclusive. So it's not really finished.
I just can't really see them wanting
he's never
to fight
coming back
again
to fight anyone ever again. You'll never see that guy again. Like, no one ever see that guy again. Unless you're going in deep into the jungle somewhere. I mean, he's gone now. He's gone for good. Because he's a nightmare, isn't he? Like, who wants to pay him?
Like, I think he's signed with Matchroom. I think he's signed with them.
It's nothing.
So I'm not saying that we could see him versus Josh Warrington again. I don't think we do see that, but wouldn't surprise me to see him pick up a title somewhere along the line. He used to.
They're promoting in Mexico, maybe. So maybe,
yeah.
But I mean, he ain't fighting any of their fighters. That's
for
sure. Like, Yeah, but so there's loads for Galahad to happen. It's a good division still, and Navarrete is a big puncher himself. So that's a really good fight. But again, he's one of those fighters where you'll avoid him as long as you can.
I think Navarrete and Lara used to do a lot of sparring together up till very recently. Navarrete said that Mauricio Lara was the hardest that he's ever been hit.
Yeah.
Which was very interesting.
And he's good, Navarrete. I've covered some of his fights with super.
He boxed in America like every 6 weeks for that period of time, didn't he? I think he boxed Flasher Lordy's grandson on a Fury undercard.
Well, I did him on. I think he was on a Canelo undercard as well. I think I did him.
Yeah, I think he was on the Canelo.
Golovkin one, maybe.
I don't know.
Either way, I've seen him on a. I mean, I'm on Box Nation.
I think it was with him. It was like I'd imagine that he's not, commanding a massive sum, and he's very friendly to watch for TV. So you get him in there as regular as you can. I remember the beatings that he put on Isaac Dogboe. Isaac Dogboe was a good fighter. Is a good fighter. He beat Adam Lopez, who's another very good fighter. He actually still wants a trilogy bout with Navarrete, which is just fucking madness to me. But we'll see how that one plays out. Final one I'd like to discuss with you. We've got about 10 minutes before we have to wrap up. This weekend, Andy's American adventure continues, and it stops in... Oh, mate, don't even get me started. Fucking Andy. But anyway, he's in Anaheim for Jaime Munguia versus Gabe Rosado. I think probably 12 months ago, you would have looked at it as a resounding one-sided... bit of a beating, really, on behalf of Munguia, but obviously Gabe Rosado, I kind of still do as well. It's kind of where I was going with it. He had the win against Beck the Bully this past, I can't remember when that was. I think it was earlier on this year. Giving him any chance of springing the upset?
No.
I think Munguia is actually improving. I think Munguia is starting to develop into a lot more of a well-rounded fighter now. Yeah.
That's the thing, when you have loads of power, a lot of the time, it disguises your frailties in your makeup, because you haven't had to use the jab, you haven't had to learn how to defend, you haven't had to learn how to do the fundamentals, because you just got massive raw power. But yeah, because against Liam Smith, he bashed him on pillar of the post, but he didn't look technically great, and he hadn't in other fights. But yeah, I think he's getting better, because he's moved up in weight. When you start going up in quality, they don't fall over as easy. He learned for the Liam Smith fight. You're all excited. The Liam Smith fight, he learned, that he couldn't. Not everyone falls over for me. What's going on? And I think that was the start of him starting to think, I gotta, start working on other parts of my game. So yeah, but Rosado either just tucks up and tries to go the distance, or goes for it and gets hurt.
I mean, it's worth pointing out the Melikuziev fight. He was taking a bit of a beating, and then he pulled that Hail Mary out from nowhere, that right hand that came out from...
I know, but you can't judge a fighter on like... I wouldn't say... People say it's no lucky punch because he threw it, but there are. When it's against the grain, it's a lucky punch.
It was a Hail Mary, and at that point, Melikuziev, I think, felt like the fight was over, kind of walked in with his hands down and run straight into the right hand, didn't he?
Yeah, I think Munguia works him over, and it might take him a while.
I tell you what, it would be nice to see Rosado pull it out the bag. I think with the career he's had, the opponents he's boxed, more often than not, he's in good fights. I think this notion that he's always in these wars come from people who haven't seen the Martin Murray fight, and he's had a couple of other stinkers thereabouts. But he has been somebody who's talk about like a servant to the sport, boxing Gennady Golovkin and the guys that he's boxed kind of back to back. It would be nice to see him kind of eventually get that holy grail, be one of those feel good boxing stories. But I can't see it happening against Jaime Munguia.
I don't care. But I'd rather see Munguia win.
Sets up the bigger fights, doesn't it? And
it's coming better for boxing.
Yeah,
and surely it is. I think that's.
He'll have a rematch clause though. I know you're a big fan of that. So we could get Rosado to win the first one for the kind of the Rocky moment.
The biggest thing for rematch clause is right. We'll take a little detour now, as always. The Yad and bloody.
Oh.
The Yad and Arthur fight. Who has a rematch clause for Commonwealth title? I never known anything like it. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So he's like, what's that all about? Like,
I don't know.
They'd be having rematch clauses now for WBO European welterweight fights. I think it's like, come on, like.
Back to Jaime Munguia. He's actually working with Eric Morales now. So Eric Morales is part of the training team. I think he brought him in a couple of fights ago. I think it was after the Liam Smith fight, or it might have been the Liam Smith fight. Eric Morales actually mentioned about, he said that because he's getting up there in weight now, because he's retired, he actually had a little move around with Munguia in sparring because he thought he'd be able to show him some of the technical sides of what he's doing and stuff like that. And then apparently that lasted about a round. He said that he didn't expect Munguia to be as heavy-handed as he was and to have the natural power that he was. But I mean, having somebody like an Eric Morales who's been there, seen it, done it, having somebody like him in the corner, could be the reason. So I'm not entirely sure when in the timeline he came in, but I know it's a recent addition, and I feel like it has improved Munguia, certainly from a technical point of
Especially
view.
if he sort of, you know, I don't think he's not probably training him, but he's probably training with him. And
Yeah.
but if you see,
if he's the lead trainer,
yeah, if you see some of the stuff that great fighters do, then you do sort of go, oh. And also, one of the great things that Morales would do are things you can learn. It's not like a Maverick Naz type thing. And you go, oh, did I do that? Why got to do that? You know, I got to do a backflip, then I got to throw some weird punch from out of my asshole. You know, it's not like that. You know, with him, it's like, you know, you can see how you watch the feet, how he breaks in, how he breaks the distance down.
lovely straight shots.
How he stays across, yeah. How, you know, how the angle of the body to get that lead left uppercut and things like that. And, you know, it'll be invaluable for him, yeah.
Okay, well, before we go, you just mentioned that Anthony Yard versus Lyndon Arthur. We're a few weeks away from that.
Yeah.
How'd you see that fight going?
I don't know. It's not like everyone's going to watch. Oh, what a great fight for the fans! And is it the first fight wasn't great to watch? Was it? That's the truth of it.
No,
but it's intriguing now because Yard was a huge favourite, of course, and he got. You know, I felt he got quite schooled in many ways. You know, it wasn't a landslide, but I think there was only one winner. And and the bubble burst, and that's 2 losses, like pretty much, and you got to come back from that now. I fancy Arthur again, to be honest. But then, you know, if Yard can use the jab and, you know, sort of make a real concerted effort to go quicker, which he haven't really done before. I used to praise Yard about, you know, he never panics, never rushes his work, but always gets the job done quick. But that might be a habit that he always stays relaxed. He doesn't need to worry about it because he has that power. But it hasn't worked. It didn't work against Arthur. And 1 hand, 2 hand, whatever. I don't give a shit about that. But it never worked. And he got out jabbed and he couldn't close the distance quick enough. And the guy wasn't there right in front of him to hit. And he couldn't bully him onto the ropes. And I feel it might be the same again. And he might over-try this time. That's the difference. So, yeah, they need to do something massively different. I think he had that arrogance that I'm just world-class now because I had 1 good round against Kovalev. You know, understandable. Got loads of praise for the fight, and rightly so. But, you know, they haven't, you know, he's still domestic level. Because he's only won at domestic level. Let's not forget that. He's only won at domestic level. Forget about that 1 round or 2 rounds he had against Kovalev. He's only won at domestic level, so he's still domestic level until he beats someone above that. And the same with Arthur. I know this is like a #1, WBO #1. Fucking ludicrous, really. But that's not what it's all about. It's about who's the best around their little area. And listen, we don't need, like, we should literally, like, put an iron fence around these light heavyweights in Britain. And put a round iron fence around them and a key on a string, right? Then every time someone gets beat, the key drops a little bit lower, and so they all fight each other, and the last one get the key and he can leave. And outside that is another fence there in the European level, and then and so on and so forth. That's what it should be. And no, but they should fight all fight each other. That's they make a fortune. They make more money doing that than they would probably boxing for world titles, to be honest. But it's an intriguing fight more than the fight that I'm not super excited about it.
I could have lived my life just fine without seeing it again, but I am quite intrigued by it.
Because I think it'll be a better fight than the first one. So it has to be, really. But for Arthur's sake, it needs to be the same sort of fight.
Yeah.
It's his job to make this fight as boring as possible. That's his job. Because if he can frustrate Yard, then it becomes boring, and Yard's frustrated, and he picks him off and irritates him. And that's what he needs to win it. Don't take any silly risks. Don't try and show off. Don't try and win the fight extra hard, because Yard has that real raw power. That's the thing with Yard. You can always think he's going to get beat up or outboxed. He's not good enough. Technically, whatever you want to think about him, no. But he has that power to finish a fight at any time, and that's it's just something fucking great. It's great to have, isn't it? That whatever happens, I could lose 11 and a half rounds if I catch you, because he almost did.
Yeah, he did. He hurt him in the last round.
Don't forget that. And also, I think important for Yard, he's now accepted the loss. He didn't accept it first of all. He couldn't accept it. I never lost. No, and it was an arrogance that wasn't nice to see, but he's accepted it now, and that might help him.
Yeah, so you can go back and try and address what you felt went wrong in the fight. Obviously, he's got James Cook now in the camp as well.
Well, I don't know how that works. Again, there's still too many people for me. Because James is a quiet man.
Yeah.
By the way, so I don't know how that works. It might work perfectly. I don't know.
Well, we spoke to James Cook a few weeks ago. I was down at a golf club for Michael Watson benefit day, and I sort of said to James, "How are you getting on with Anthony Yard?" He said, "I'm, getting on really well. Like, he's really coachable. He listens, and blah blah blah." And I said, "Well, how does the training dynamic work?" Because obviously he's in there with Tunde, who's obviously a maverick character in his own right. And he said it works fine. He's like, when I talk, everybody listens. When they talk, I listen. He's like, as soon as that changes, I will fuck off, is what he says. So James Cook, I really like James, and he's somebody who doesn't take any bullshit.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he was saying, what we need to do in the fight is we need to close the distance with our feet.
Yeah.
We were falling over our front foot, leaving the feet behind, and that's where we need to address, which I agree with.
Well,
so
I think it's a case with Yard that he sometimes wants, and especially that fight, he wanted to win, but he wanted to win pretty.
Yeah.
Well, I got to look cool and smart. But in this fight, he needs to get a little bit like, forget about how you look. Be effective. And I said, close the gap. You've got to get inside that reach, but you've got to use the jab. You've got to step behind it. Every shot got to be solid, not look for the big right hand. And you have to disguise that right hand. You have to do loads of feints. You've got to draw that long lead of Arthur because he's going to be punching and looking to go back.
Working the body as well. We didn't see any of that from Anthony Yard in the Lyndon Arthur of the first fight. Admittedly against a very, very low level in opposition, but he's had his little comeback fight since then. And the two shots that got the knockdowns were two left hooks to the body, and he set them up nice. Again, admittedly not against a stellar opponent, but the shots were put together really well. So hopefully, for his sake, that he's able to implement some of that against Lyndon Arthur.
But I think the closer the fight gets, the more you'll want to see it. It's one of those.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. And
it's still a good style matchup again. And I think that's pretty much one of the only things that he's got going for it is the style matchup is a good style. You'll always kind of.
But it'd be more if Yard's having more success, it'd be more exciting to watch. So for a fan sort of basis, you want Yard to win because then if he wins, it'll be by stoppage or he beats Arthur up, so it'll be more exciting fight to watch. And if Arthur wins, you tend to think if he wins, it'd have to be
more of a
using the jab, frustrate you, using the feet, making you miss, making you pay. Not saying he can win exciting that way, but that means Arthur's going to have to, Yard's going to have to really commit to every combination, even after he's been made to miss and made to pay. I don't know whether he's never done that before. I don't know if he can do that. So he can be an exciting fight that way if Arthur wins. But the most predictable thing would be if Arthur wins, he's a stinker of a fight, but he gets the job done. And if Yard wins, it's an exciting fight or certainly an exciting finish. Because he's either miles behind, knocks him out, or he bashes him up from the offset and doesn't give Arthur a chance to really get a foothold in the fight.
Okay, well, we look forward to seeing it. We're about there now. As always, Barry Jones, thanks very much for stopping by on the Boxing Social Podcast. And to you, of course, for watching episode 29 of the Boxing Social Podcast. From me, Rob Tebbutt, from him, Barry Jones. Thanks very much for stopping by. We'll see you soon.